nation. Our constant goal is to build links and platforms of mutual interest from the experience and reliance between Poles and Norwegians. These are links between business environments from both countries, organizations, and the most important one, a link between an average Polish immigrant in Norway, which we used to call him Borowski, and the Norwegian state. As the number of our immigrants in Norway rises constantly, we need to create a characteristic of the Polish minority and define its needs and motivations to come here. Furthermore, we need to define the most common problems that this minority has to face and try to find solutions to these problems. This is the purpose of the seminar, and I am sure that when we all go back home today, we will have a feeling that we did a good job and that this kind of events are needed in the future. The main subject of my presentation is the new wave of immigration from Poland to Norway. In order to explain this, I will have to refer to some conditions in Poland, and in order to explain the term new wave of immigration, we have to go back in time to the years 2004-2008. Poland's accession to the European Union gave our country many new opportunities, and one of the most important ones was an easier access to enter and stay in other countries, which also included Norway, of course. As a consequence, the Polish migration to Norway has been significantly accelerated, which resulted in the fact that in 2006 we were the 6th biggest group of immigrants in Norway, and eventually we took the first place in 2008. Then, after a short period of calm and stable growth in numbers, dictated by certain circumstances in Poland, came the second significant and rapid outflow of Poles to Norway, starting from approximately 2010. This second wave of Polish immigrants coming to Norway can be referred to as the new wave of immigration, which according to various sources can take up to 10 years. When we look at these two waves of Polish migration to Norway, an interesting phenomenon is the fact that there are significant differences between them. The increased interest in migration from Poland to Norway after Poland's accession to the EU and all the simplifications and opportunities given by this fact had one key factor, and these were high earnings. The Poles realized that even a very short period of work in Norway allowed them to achieve incomparably higher income, higher earnings than in Poland. This view was further sustained by the conviction that an individual will earn the money in Norway and spend it in Poland, where the costs of living were lower and the actual value of money was a lot higher, having in mind that costs of living in Norway are by far higher, which means that the purchasing power of money here is not that amazing. Another aspect determining such a significant outflow of Poles to work in Norway and other countries was a drastically high unemployment rate in Poland in these years. According to the government statistics, the unemployment rate at its peak in 2004 was 20.6%. The wave of migration to other countries, including Norway, after Poland's EU accession, resulted in a gradual decrease of unemployed persons in our country. The majority of Polish immigrants in Norway during the first big wave of immigration were low-skilled male workers hired on short-term contracts in the building and construction sector. Due to the fact that they were permanently resident in Poland with their families, they expected to stay in Norway, temporarily, earn enough money, and come back to their homeland where they can spend this money. The new massive Polish exodus to Norway came after a short period of economic stability in Poland in the years 2007 to 2009. Despite the prevailing world financial crisis, Poland managed to maintain a stable unemployment rate and keep the country's economy in good shape compared to other European countries. These factors had also an influence on migration to Norway, which was not that rapid as in earlier years. Unfortunately, the years 2010-2013 bring a large increase of unemployment rate in Poland. The worst aspect of it is that it affects most of all young people under the age of 30. In this group of people, the unemployment rate is around 30%, which is drastic. Furthermore, the majority of unemployed young people are these who graduated and are entering the labor market in Poland, which cannot provide them job offers in accordance to their preferences and their obtained skills and knowledge. Another problem which contributed to the high unemployment rate in the last few years was the crisis of the Polish shipbuilding industry. Due to the economic problems of shipyards in Poland, this industry nearly collapsed and produced a large number of unemployed workers who eventually had to move to other countries to work in the shipbuilding industry. Many of these people are hired now in Norwegian companies operating in this sector, and their qualifications and experience obtained in Polish shipyards allow them to maintain a well-paid job in Norway, where they are considered to be employees of very high value. These mentioned factors have a very big influence on the outbreak of the new wave of Polish migration to Norway. In comparison to the previous wave, we see that some of the motivations and tendencies have changed, as well as the profile of people who wish to live and work in Norway. The economic aspect is still a very important motivation among new immigrants. An opportunity to earn decent money was, is, and always will be one of the decisive factors determining whether a person wants to move from one country to another, which is obvious, especially that Norway is one of the most prosperous countries in the world, and working here ensures high incomes. Higher earnings mean also a higher standard of living, which is also desired by the new immigrants, as well as social security, which Norway can definitely provide. However, the new tendencies are that, apart from physical workers, many of the new Polish citizens migrating to Norway are people with very high professional aspirations, who don't have only in mind earning more money than in Poland by taking average jobs in Norway, but they actually want to become members of the higher class in the Norwegian society. That is why many of them study in Poland, and after graduation they immediately move to Norway, where they learn the language, and after a while they take up their dream jobs here. We have many examples on this. For example, the Polish universities, which provide learning Norwegian and Scandinavian studies. In general, they send the students to exchange programs to Norway, and students have a chance to study here in Norway or just stay here for a while, learn the language and have the subjects in Norwegian, then they come back to Poland or decide to continue their studies and master grade in Norway. The people from the new wave of immigration are also interested in permanent residence in Norway and either starting a family here or bringing their families from Poland. This the interest in permanent staying in Norway was we had an evidence here in Alexandra's prelection. Immigrants from the immigrants from the new wave of immigration are not only represented in the in sectors where Poles usually work. We all know that most of our immigrants work in the building and construction industry, the cleaning sector, and all other that can be described shortly as physical work. But now, this new wave of immigration brings also a diversity of sectors where Poles are represented, and as a consequence, there are more and more highly educated Poles working in sectors such as education, health services, legal services, offices, public administration, IT, etc. Another interesting sector where we see a rapid increase of Polish representation is business. As a company which deals with consulting services for business on a daily basis, we can say definitely that Polish entrepreneurs choose Norway as the land where they can run a successful business. There is an eruption of Polish companies which want to carry out business activities in Norway as the NUFs, the Norwegian Registered Foreign Companies. But apart from that, there are Polish entrepreneurs who are not scared to register and run a typical Norwegian company, such as a sole proprietorship or a limited liability company. I can risk a thesis that the Polish businessmen, are the most organized among businessmen from the new EU countries. I had several meetings in embassies from other new European Union countries, and they didn't even hear about, let's say, businessmen from Lithuania or Romania who want to establish an Aksjeselskap, for example. And Poles do this, and there are more and more of these companies. Norway's attractiveness for Polish immigrants from the new wave of immigration is based on 3 pillars or foundations. These are high incomes, a chance for good education and job, and social security. When it comes to high incomes, as I mentioned before, working in Norway provides incomparably higher earnings than in Poland, despite high costs of living. Furthermore, some of the additional income sources in Norway are not known or insignificant in Poland, such as the holiday pay, regulated by the law, and the social benefits, which exist in Poland, but the rates are quite poor. The branches where the majority of Poles work, such as the building and construction, shipbuilding and cleaning industry, have minimum hourly wages, hourly rates, which are protected and guaranteed by collective agreements. These statutory solutions are very beneficial for employees hired in these sectors, and any violations are severely punished by the Norwegian authorities. Some of the tax regulations are also very beneficial for Poles working in Norway, especially for those who have their families in their homeland. The tax deductions that apply to these people often result in a very high tax refund, which is a significant position in an average Pole's budget. Obtaining an education in Norway gives a better opportunity to find an ideal job in comparison to Poland and the lower risk of long-term unemployment. We can say, having experiences from Poland and seeing our situation every day, that an average Polish student after graduation is often forced to take a job which has nothing to do with his obtaining higher education, or he has another great choice to become unemployed for a long time. And we think that this does not apply to the Norwegian conditions, or not apply in this large extent. Social security is the third pillar, and we can say that it's on a much higher level than in Poland, which gives a sense of safety and a concern that the state cares for a person. The main point is that benefits and allowances in Norway are significant when it comes to the amounts which a person actually receives and the duration of the particular benefits. This applies to the unemployment benefit, family-related benefits, sickness benefits, and others. For example, receiving an unemployment benefit in Norway allows a person to maintain a normal standard of living when looking for a job. In Poland, the amount is so small that it doesn't secure the basic needs of an unemployed person while he or she is searching for a new job. The retirement pension in Norway is also very significant and allows maintaining a normal standard of living, while the retirement pension system in Poland, with its instability and low amounts, forces the majority of pensioners to live very modestly in their last years of life. The immigrants from the new wave of Polish immigration still have the same problems in Norway as earlier. Most of these have to do with poor knowledge of the Norwegian language and legislation, but there are also problems with Norwegian institutions such as NAV, Skatteetaten, UDI, etc., and the problem of competition on the labor market, which results in long-term unemployment for many of them. And I think you said some things and facts about this. Issues with employers such as social dumping or unpaid salaries are still a big problem, especially because Poles very often don't know how to fight for their rights and which institutions they need to alarm when their employers take illegal actions against them. Usually they come to us and ask questions about that. Problems with cultural integration and difficulties related to living far away from families can also be referred to as old problems, especially the second one, which affects many temporary workers who don't plan to bring their families to Norway and they have to share their lives between two countries. As a summary, I'd like to say a few words about the Polish immigrants' expectations towards the Norwegian state. I pointed out some of them here, but to make it shorter, I will describe the most important one from my point of view as a person who is involved in consulting services for Poles in Norway. We know from our experience that the Poles would wish an effective and simple contact with the Norwegian public administration. Our company helps these people with all the problems with authorities, but even for us it's very frustrating when the Norwegian institutions react so slowly to inquiries and that they sometimes give contradictory information. We realize that there is a lot of goodwill on the Norwegian side and that it is difficult to implement some solutions for these systems such as NAV or the tax administration, but this is for a greater cause. The cause is that the new wave of Polish immigration won't stop in the nearest future, and I think that neither us Poles nor our Norwegian friends want this wave to become a tsunami which will destabilize the state. Thank you very much for your attention.